Yes, here we go. It's a Thursday night. It's the T.N.F time. As always, I'm joined by the judge, Marc Cairney, on a Thursday. Mark's been flirting about the podcast scene this week. I've still not had the word on. I'm really kidding on. He was worried about his lighting from the pod on Monday. I've told him, Mark, you are podcast quality every time you come on the show, mate. Don't you worry about that, big boy. And, of course, as a wee rare treat on a Thursday, the big man in Canada, Liam, the pumped up warlord, decided he was going to stop by and catch the Canadian bus time as well. What time's it over there, big man?
Is it? It's about,
What
1
time
o'clock.
is it?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock in the afternoon on the bus. Anyway, I hope everyone is well. It's great to see so many on 81 Live already. It is the T.N.F. It is the show where we hand the keys over to you. Let's do it tonight. There's lots to talk about. We could set the ball rolling with a couple of wee things. But as always, if you've got talking points you really want to bring up to us three, I would love to get them starred in the comments and we'll come along to them as we go. Big shout out to Chris already. Just straight in there. Do not believe the final hype. We have what it takes. Hail, hail. And a £4.99 donation. Far too kind, Chris, mate. Really appreciate that. The same way, though, we appreciate everyone on the bus. If you want to, though, do the bus a wee favour and do all that good stuff. That means give us a like, give us a share, slag off the hair, as always. If you want to become a Boise Bus member, like Jim C, like Mike Moynihan, like Gary Brown, like Alex, like Jim Dolan, like Gary Brown. Have I said him already? I don't know. I lose track, man. I lose track. There's so many members. San Fran Celtic, one of the best names there are. Phil McGinley, as always. Love shouting out him. And of course, Una as well. Hail, hail to you all. And we all Brown Warrior, balls to the walls. A couple of great names in there as well. Anyway, let's get stuck into it. And of course, buysports.com, 12.5% tasty discount, yada, yada, yada. Get your talking points in now. Even while I'm talking shite, I keep a wee eye on them. As you know, I'm quite good to give them the red card to the odd wee ban that comes in the chat. Sometimes, if you want to write me up, I bring them on the screen and I'll just side you down then before I block you as well. So it's all great fun on the bus, as we all know. But the T.N.F. means this week is the T.N.F. before domestic league comes back around. Domestic action again. And I know we're all desperate for it. But in the meantime, in between that, Champions League squads were announced, guys. I'll come at you first, Mark. You are the staple on the show. Champions League squad quality. We had a wee chat in the group about what you kind of were saying what you made of it. I think I'd seen on Twitter as well. You were saying about the list of defenders. Actually, that's one of our stronger areas. Bar Rocky being missing. I think if you added him to it, it would be okay. But yes, in terms of the Champions League squad, compared to other Celtic squads for the Champions League, I think even the most ardent, like, yes or happy clappers, shall we say, on Twitter or other social media, whatever you prefer, are now coming around the idea this squad, when you see it in the cold light of day, as much as we might have a hell of a lot of respect for a lot of the players and want all the players, of course, to do the best they can, when you see it on paper, you sometimes feel a wee bit now, I think, when you see it the cold light of day, is that really tooling up Brendan for the Champions League? Or are we relying on the eliteness, really, to come from the man in the dugout? But notwithstanding that, and I love balance in the debate, that's what I always strive for. I happen to believe, regardless of what anyone thinks, we will get more than the 2 points achieved by our shortlisted manager of the year in Europe, Ange Postecoglou. I think Brendan would be raging if you finished this Champions League campaign with just 2 points. I think last year's Champions League group was favourable in terms of the quality in that tournament, not because there's any easy games. And I think this year is relatively favourable again when you consider the quality of the tournament. Notwithstanding that, I don't think our squad is quite as equipped or at the stage as it was Angie's second season that we were in the Champions League last year, that this one is. But all that being said and done, Judge, do you expect us to get more than 2 points this year in the Champions League?
I'm not entirely sure, mate, to be honest with you. I think we're going into a knife fight with a spoon. Quite honest with you, mate. I look at that squad and it's quite sobering when you The thing about sobering thoughts is, boys say they drive you to drink. And when I seen that squad announced last week, or this week rather, it was a kind of reality check for a few folk who were suggesting that Celtic were prepared for the Champions League. In fact, even our manager got a bit ratty tonight when you seen the press conference and he got asked about the squad and he got asked about was he expecting more players in, and he's like, look, I'm not going to speak about this anymore. I'll speak about it in January. And he's normally quite a cool guy. I think we can see through that veil that he was a bit pissed off with him. I think Feyenoord, I mean, I did get the point that Feyenoord might seem a bit overrated, but it's a team that lost 2 games last season, you know what I mean, and put 8 goals past Shakhtar Donetsk, a team we struggled against, so they're no mugs. They could take 6 points after us. I think we've all got a victory in this group. I think we might get a victory at home against somebody, but I wouldn't be using the fact that we beat Lazio 3 or 4 years ago as some sort of barometer that we're going to put another 3 points on the board against Lazio. Or I've seen folks saying 4 points against Lazio as a minimum. I just don't see it. They've got a wage bracket at something like their average players on 48,000 euros a week. Our average players on something like 17. So that shows you the difference in quality of player or difference in level of player they've got compared to Celtic. So I think the Celtic as a club, even when Celtic go to the next level and they spend to the level that we can spend, we struggle in most Champions League groups. But this group, if you had to handpick it, I don't think you would pick much better than what we got. But I still think the squad is just not ready yet. I didn't think the squad was ready for Ibrox last week. I definitely thought that, or 2 weeks ago, I thought that squad going to Ibrox was like lambs to a slaughter. I just thought it was all. But they proved us wrong, so they could prove us wrong again. And one thing about Brendan Rodgers is for me, the last time he was here, he raised my expectations as a Celtic fan. But I remember 2 years ago having these conversations, and there was a lot of Celtic fans out there who were willing to give Ange Postecoglou a buy in Europe. They were willing to give him a lot of leeway in terms of, look, this is a bedding in period for the club. The guys just come over, he has to build a squad, yada, yada, yada. I don't think Brendan Rodgers will get that same luxury. I think folk are going to hold, you've mentioned hold him at a higher regard. Well, we should, because he's a better manager. In my opinion, he is the most elite that a club in Scotland can get. You know what I mean? If you bring in that level of manager, expectations do rise. So when you bring in a £6 million striker, you're expecting more from him than you do bringing in a guy for $1.5 million that you bought off of Hibs. I mean, it's just clear thinking. And there's a lot of stuff you see on social media. I think they call it social proofing. It's like when you kind of, something within you kind of tends to want to agree with everybody else's opinion, so you kind of validate your own opinion. I mean, folk are beginning to slowly come to the realisation that Celtic are this, well-oiled machine that's going to come in and start beating teams in Europe and swatting teams aside in Scotland, and they see that squad sitting in paper in front of their eyes. I think the reality of that transfer window is stark, and then that's when people come out of that bubble and start to think for themselves. And I think the Champions League, although there was no surprise, I think Niraki was a surprise, but we all knew the squad, but to see it in paper with that Champions League badge behind it, and then know that's what we're going to battle with, it was sobering, mate. As I said, it would drive you to drink, and I'm expecting one thing's for sure: if we get in this group and get 2 points, as you mentioned, we'll see Brendan Rodgers nominated for Manager of the Year. I can assure you that. I think that's a bit of a joke. How a guy that struggled to beat Inverness Cali and win a treble is in the same list of managers as Pep Guardiola. I think that was just a total gesture, and probably just bringing in a guy for Spurs to make it look like an EPL manager, but with the big guns is in amongst the contenders. But to answer your original question, I do think we might get a win. I think we will get a win under this guy, because
Me too.
It'll make the squad's only just started, we're not even going to squad together yet. I think you'll get a win, boys. By the way, I think you might even get more than one win. I think you might get a draw as well along the way, and that will take me. If I get 4 points, I'd take that.
I can't just take 4 points. So I want to know I want to get third, and about 4 points might be enough for third, I suppose. But I would definitely.
Of course, I want there. But
Aye, but you would take but you would take 4 points anyway.
I would take a win again in that group and a draw. I'd take that, boys. I must admit, Celtic. I've watched Celtic be humiliated.
Yep.
Too many in the last 18 games. We've won one game, mate.
That's fair enough. My maybe it's a gambling instinct I've got, Mark. I would just rather roll that fucking dice and see how it goes. I couldn't just take 4 points now. But do you know what? It's interesting, Liam, when you look at the group stage or the group that we've been drawn with, and you can't help but feel there is opportunity within it. That's not because I think the group's easy or isn't difficult. Far from it. There was no group that could have got drawn that wasn't going to be difficult. You're now dining at the top table. I can't get over the fact I feel when you see the squad list drawn, and this is me going back to earlier this week. We will get to the domestic stuff. Do not worry, ladies and gentlemen. We will do that. But just harking back to earlier this week when the squad was announced, you couldn't help but feel when you looked at it in the cold light of day on paper, that slight deflation that really, have we went again for the extra mile of the champion? Well, I say again, have we went the extra's not even extra mile, extra yard for the Champions League? I think Celtic are going the extra yard. I think Celtic are just we'll just keep rinse, repeat every summer, and there'll be 1 year in a blue moon or a green moon, you could say, that will just turn out that we'll make the last 16 or something like that out of fucking ridiculous performances like Neil Lennon produced against Barcelona, and you'll go, oh, well, see, aren't we doing great? We're punching above our weight again. Celtic don't try to punch above their weight. They hope they'll punch above their weight. I wish all the players well. This is not a slight on them. But that squad has not been strengthened for a second group stage successive year that was already known by the time the previous season ended. That's the big difference for me. I almost fell into line at times where I went, they budget for Europa League and then they hope they'll make the Champions League through the qualifiers, right? Because that is a complete riddle, right? And it's very difficult. But this time around, this guarantees to call it like we're already in it. We still didn't. It's not about pushing the boat out. It's about detaching it for the fucking pier that it's, it's just taking the anchor out the fucking guns. You know what I mean? It's just like, this is just not right. That really frustrates me. And then when you look ahead and you do get the group, you go, do you know what? Imagine if you'd believed a wee bit this summer like the fans do. Imagine if you believed a wee bit in the money in the bank believes you could make some sort of impact. I take Mark's point about the Lazio disparity. There's always going to be that, no matter what. There was that even when Martin O'Neill was spending. There was still disparity. When you take away the big earners, come on. I mean, like, we were getting results with Didier Gat and stuff at right wing back. You ain't on big wage, right? So there's always going to be a wee bit of disparity. But right now, I feel that this is a missed opportunity through a lack of belief of the club, if I'm honest.
It's a massive missed opportunity. I mean, we've got one left back on that team sheet for Europe. Not like anybody hasn't been vocal about it, That shows you right there. It's like, how did that get missed? Not just missed opportunities, but things that are glaringly obvious wrong within their club. Like just not having a pulse on what the supporters are wanting or what the supporters' expectations are. This board, it just seems to completely miss that. They believe they're one of us, but their actions and their reactions to stuff is so far apart that, I don't have anything in common with them, and they just don't represent me. And you can see that showing up in the way that we treat Champions Leagues. I mean, we had a chance to go, in Seville. That was unbelievable. I was, 62-year-old now, but like back in the time, me and my mate, I can move it again in their lifetime sort of thing. That's 2 finals or 3 finals with Celtic we've seen, and it just became to that sort of low expectation bullshit. Where you're somebody like Martin, love you, mate, but fuck, 4 points, I know, but I see that's where we are. I'm just hoping we don't get absolutely annihilated and thrashed. But then again, that's when I look at what the board have invested in the team. And then the romantic side is like Rodgers. Well, okay, well, what if? You only watch Celtic because of what if and what else and all that, and what you can, see the team coming up with on the park and all that. And okay, is there a chance we can knock out? We can do Lazio again. We did a double against them before. Can Brendan make his magic happen? Can we get a player that shows up out of nowhere and becomes a star? And takes the opportunity and runs with it. Maybe O's still got that in him. Maybe it's Liam Scales at left back. But that's the thing. It's like we're sitting here hoping and dreaming rather than planning and scheming. It's like we've tried to make it so we'll see how much Rodgers can actually do. Let's see how good a coach you are. It's almost like the board's got this standoffish attitude that they're there to get popular. We're there to get results in spite of them. And I think that's just some weird mindset for a fan of a football club. When you're watching organisations run, they're run like a political party. They should have just all went into politics because they'd fuck all that up as well. We're seeing our Tories fucking acting like them. Anyway.
But no, I hear you though. I hear you with there's a lot of propaganda that goes on, Mark. You are very, very quick to point out on one of the aspects and admit from your own point of view, do not take this the wrong way because it's not meant you went, but I'm a hypocrite because I still do it. But you were like, they were all in, we're all in this year. That was the tagline. You were the first to pick up on it, Mark. You went, has that bold went all in on the team? Now, me and you debated 15 months ago. Let's start believing in the competitions that we're a part of. Let's try and go in. Maybe not with a spoon, but at least with a water pistol, something like that, a tatty gun, something effective, mate. Maybe we'll get up to a BB gun one day. Something that could maybe land a sort of a shot. But right now, as you say, they're going in with a spoon. And the money keeps growing. The money keeps going. And I just looked at when I seen the squad, I just can't understand. We're going to talk about the squad now, rather than just continually aiming it on the board. But we can relate both. When you look at that squad, you just start beginning to realise where the shortcomings are. For me, the glaring one, UEFA might be good at doing the whole, there's the forwards, and it looked like we had four. It was Abada, he's now out, ironically. But it was Kyogo, Abada,
Turnbull.
There was another forward that was listed. There was a forward listed. There was four forwards, and I'm like, that's not. Celtic had gone into this tournament with two strikers, one left back, unless we see Liam Scales move to left back. If we go through defence to midfield to attack, Mark, very quickly, I'll get your defence and then I'll come back to your midfield and vice versa. We can talk about all that. But with the defensive structure, the one that frustrates me the most, I am gutted about Rocky not being able to be included. But I do feel they've done well enough to get Nat Phillips in as cover for that. I think whether we rate these players or we don't, we just need to let time will tell on it. But I do feel it was a position in the heart of the defence that was strengthened. Tony Ralston's earned rave reviews on this bus by yourself as much as anyone as a backup right back. Alistair Johnson's back to fitness, and we all consider him Celtic class. The left back area has been glaringly obvious. They didn't even include Bernabei in the squad. Unless I'm mistaken and there's some loophole we can get in by, I am pretty sure he is not in the Champions League squad. Do you think that means Liam Scales could now, considering how out of form Greg Taylor's been, since he's reverted back from the inverted fullback to a traditional fullback, it's under the Rodgers regime, he's looked right out of sorts. I'm not saying he was a world beater at any point. Liam will testify to him not being a world beater or Champions League quality. But do you think Liam Scales could now be the answer at left back?
I think you're totally summing up the quality of Celtic's actual transfer business if we're considering Liam Scales as some sort of upgrade or some sort of solution to our problems just now, Boise. I think Greg Taylor has turned into Liz Taylor overnight. I thought he was excellent the last two seasons. I spoke last year about he should be in the shortlist for Player of the Year. In the last wee while, pre-season and the now, he's just not kicked the ball. And it looks like he's a player who needs a man of the match performance. He needs a performance in him to get himself back up to speed. I'm not entirely sure whether that's coming or where it's coming from, because I thought even at Ibrox he was red rotten. I look at the defence, and I think the centre back, we were unlucky when Rocky. I think he was number one next to but I think we were buying Rocky anyway. So I think Lagerbielke was to replace the backup. And then he got injured too, so I ended up having to buy Nat Phillips for a few months, and it just looked like scrambling, boys. I like the defence. We needed a new goalkeeper. We beat Inverness Cali. We needed a new goalkeeper for the Champions League, and a new left back, and a centre back. We've bought a player in one position. We've not bought a left back. We've not bought a keeper. That defence is, by anybody's reckoning, a weaker defence than last season, because you've got out of sorts Greg Taylor, a keeper who's 12 months full in his age. You know what I mean? He's that bit slower, maybe that, but you know, a player who's probably needing replaced anyway, boys. You got Alistair Johnson, who I think he's a very good right back, and Ralston, I think he's fine as a backup. If we'd Ralston back up on as a left back, I'd probably be on my backup choice just now to replace Greg Taylor. Now, if you're mentioning, I know you're not going to talk about midfielders yet, but see if you're mentioning a Celtic team that contains names like Abada, Turnbull, Scales, you're totally flipping for last season when these players were nowhere near Celtic quality. They were second and third choice. Some of them weren't even in the squad. And we've got to a stage now where we're flatting about Abada, who was nowhere near the starting 11 last season. He wasn't even getting a game unless it was sub-bench minutes or it was injuries. He wasn't in the equation, boys. And this season, you've got him as a big panic. We've got a left back. We mentioned there about the board. It was total neglect by them. Total neglect. I can't believe for the life of me that we've said on day one of preparation for this season, Champions League's coming up. It's all sorted. Money's in the bank. This is what we've got guaranteed. We'll be gone with in defence. Brendan, you happy with Taylor as your left back choice? And he said aye. I can't believe that's what's happened. I can't believe he sat down and said to the board, I'm happy with Hart. I think the centre back issue, the club couldn't avoid that. I think the club did get somebody in who would probably be a level of Starfelt, Billucks, and Naroki, but he's injured. You can't help that. I think Lagerbielke looks like somebody who's on the lager, to be honest with you. And then Phillips, we don't know yet. So the defence is weaker, boys. And we've got to take a defence who was really showing up for a bit of a red neck last season into the Champions League. But luckily for us, as Celtic fans, we've got a much weaker group. There's no Real Madrid in this group. But I don't know, mate. Honestly, I try to stay positive, but I just think we'd be sycophants if we're going to sit here and start praising that defence and start praising the transfer.
Wasn't quite the question though. What I was asking was, do you see Scales, considering Taylor being out of form, as the option at left back?
I think he said that, didn't he? I think he said that.
Did he?
He was asked. Bernabé, and the guy said, I take it Scales is because he went like, yeah. You know what I mean? And to be quite honest with you, sorry,
this is what I mean. Do you think would you put him?
Me personally,
ahead of Taylor?
No,
right now.
I think you might see him. I don't think it'd be a bad option, but we can't put an untested.
I wonder.
We can't put an untested player into that level, boys. I just don't think. I think he performed well at Ibrox, although, to be honest with you, he gave away a goal in the first minute that could have been onside if the guy just timed his run perfectly. And then in the second half, he let a guy in behind him that led to a shot on target as well, and they only had 3 shots on target the full match. So he was possibly lucky enough to cause a bit of an upset 2 weeks ago, but he played well. I just think my point was on that story was, after a tangent, if we're having discussions about these guys stepping into be your first choice,
I get that, mate. I actually don't. I'm very, very crystal clear on it, Mark, that I agree with you on that. I think the conversation I'm trying to move on to is what Brendan does with the cards he's now got, if you know what I mean, because you're spot on.
Possible,
do I agree? Do I agree that it should be Liam Scales competing with Greg Taylor at left back in a Champions League group stage that we knew about 4 months ago. I'm sorry, I don't think that's not where I'm at for Champions League mentality, if I'm honest. The other one I wanted to talk about, Liam, was up front. Because for me, there's a real strange situation at Celtic right now where we're afraid not to stockpile, but to have proper competition and proper backups for what used to be regarded as the most crucial position in the park. If you remember Fergie's treble 99 squad, I always go back to that one because I always think very iconic in me growing up that you almost, even though Man United are certainly not my team or anything like that, you could almost ring off their first 11 at the very least, and you could name their 4 strikers, even though they only started with 2. There'd be Dwight York, Ole Solskjaer, Andy Cole, and Teddy Sheringham. And you could ring them off and look at them all. And ironically, remember when they won in 99, it was the 2 considered reserve strikers who got the goals in the final. Now, I look at Celtic right now, and I go, yes, okay, you could say, well, we've still doubled the odds. We only play with 1, so we've got a backup 1. They played with 2, so you've got a backup 2. But that is bollocks. Because that's not forward thinking either. And I think already as well, the 2 backup strikers, when you look at that United team, I know it's different levels that you can aim for, but in terms of principle, it's still the same. Who's oven ready for the first team? Who could come in and play? Why have you got a wild card like Sheringham? Because he's vastly experienced, he can play. Not Gary Hooper, by the way, before anyone even suggests it. Kelvin Wilson still pished after the Masters. Right? That's fine. But I do think we could have been doing with investing. See, when you see that forward line, and like I was saying there, or maybe the UEFA just don't care who's actually considered a striker. Brian Moria says Maeda is the backup. Maeda's not a backup striker to me. Right? And I'm not, I don't know. He's never been played there under Rodgers either. I don't think this season as of yet. And to me, I would be very worried if that was the guy left a one-on-one in the Champions League in the last minute at home to Feyenoord, because it's just not going to happen. Or it might happen, but it'll be a toe poke that'll go off the underside of the bar, off the right post, off the left post, hit the back of the goalie and trickle over the goal line with Maeda slide tackling it in for good measure. That's how ridiculous it would end up. What we should have done was strengthen that area as well. It's unfair now that Kyogo is literally going to have to be wrapped, well, not literally, but he has to be wrapped now in cotton wool. We're going to need to start preserving maybe potential goal differences in the league. But, you go 3-0 up, you've got to get Kyogo off during this Champions League group stage campaign. The reason being, he gets a knock, you've got a project player now starting in the Champions League. Last year, we had the healthy situation of Kyogo can't play. Well, Giakoumakis will play a 27, 28-year-old thoroughbred who will score you goals. Or is untested, it's uncharted waters, and he's just coming back from an injury. This San Fran Celtic just summed it up for me. Kyogo, rest him on Saturday.
No
Not
chance.
an abaded to what San Fran Celtic's saying. But see, there you go, Mark. No chance. But do you not understand now how much you've hamstrung your squad, Liam, where Mark can't fathom the thought of Kyogo not starting at home to Dundee, considering we drew our last game 0-0 at home, with no option of a striker on the bench. But now we've got to play him at home to a Dundee team, recently promoted that we should clear out, no bother. But because of the last home game, Kyogo has to start. But then you're going to need to start measuring during the game what point in time to take him off to ensure he then is fit and firing for the Champions League. This all hangs at the most important focal point of your team is your striker. It always will be. 2 strikers, it used to be. And to only have one guy, I just don't understand why you would tie one arm behind your back before the ball's even been kicked. It just makes no sense.
Well, that's exactly what it is. We've just we've made something complicated that didn't have to be complicated. Now we're watching game management for any signs of injuries or fatigue. And that's, especially if you're trying to win a game, how long do you leave Kyogo on to, if you got a nothing, going on against like St. Johnstone or something like that. I think we've messed up, but we all knew those were the 2 areas those are 2 areas that are really vulnerable. We just always seem to be buying wingers and midfielders. you know, and Callum doesn't move, and you know, and it's just very, very little movement. We're stockpiling the players, but no concentrating on the positions that are needed. You know, we can talk about. I'm sick of talking about Giacomakis. I loved him. I think he's exactly what we need. I think that was bad man management. I think Rodgers probably bite your hand off to have somebody like that, a weapon like that on the bench that can come off and score with the head and bully and hold the ball up and all that. I know we're putting an awful lot of hope on O, and there doesn't be anybody in the youth team coming up. You know, Rock Abada's no centre forward, and I think Brendan did play Maeda in when we were in Japan. He played him up front, and he looked okay, and he scored a couple of goals. And I remember we were all talking about it. That is this Brendan doing his magic? Going to try and turn him into a Suarez type striker that can ball and then poach and stuff? But it just seems to have reverted back to form. And yeah, and then I thought Abada was also, he would fill in as a striker as well, but that option's gone now. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see Liam Scales up front soon. Who knows?
Too good, Liam. Liam, I'm going to come back to you and go in a reverse order for the forum aspect of the show. Right, I'm going to bat right back to you, big man. Keep you on your toes. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? Old Milwaukee.
Right.
Is it good?
No, it's shite. It's proper scheme beer. My son.
Is it? Rock and roll, mate. Nobody cares. I'm drinking Dragon Soup. Cheers to you, mate. Cheers, fella.
Cheers, pal.
Next one. Anyway, enough of that. Well, I've got 2 questions to tie into one for you, Liam. 2 questions to tie into one.
Okay.
Chris M came in earlier and he said, question for you, gents. Given what Mark had said, who has the biggest ego going into Europe? Is it Brendan or Ange? And Stubbs' Sauce followed it up just there now, saying, do the panel think we would get more points in the Champions League playing the Ange way or the Brendan way? I want you to answer both. We'll kind of combine them and then we'll go to Mark straight after you.
All right, so who's got the biggest ego? I think Ange. I think Ange, as much as Rodgers is a diva, oh my God, some of the shit you're seeing for Ange now is just cringy. See when we came out in his press conference when he signed with them, it was like everybody thought I was a joke here. You can see that was coming from a place of a bit of hysterics, you know. It was like, I settled down. That was 2 years ago or whatever, you know. And it was like, I thought I was a joking. So you can see that he's got Mary a chip in his shoulder and Mary proving. And he said the same thing there. He's using the same lines again when somebody asked him if he knew who Robbie Williams was and shit like that. And go, oh, yeah, you know, like the fucking crocodile Dundee pish. And I think he's, and now that he's got recognition and is in the limelight, yeah, he's going to try and suck it all up. And I hope that, I hope that does something with Rodgers where it just challenges him to sort of like take it and say, look, this guy's running away with, you know, everything as well. And you were there. You've got this team. What can you do? You know, you sat in your ass when we were trying to sign left backs, you know, so you better have a plan now because this guy's going to take the piss at you. And so I hope it has that sort of thing. And I hope it has that effect on the players as well. I hope in Europe, the players that played for Ange realise what a big opportunity they missed this year. This 60-minute bullshit where we pull half our team off and then just throw in anybody that's got the tracksuit off first. It seems, you know, coming on. And it's like, all right, okay, so 3 guys are coming and you're taking off 3 guys that are even coming into a game or something. So I'll no miss that. You know, I'm still scared for the last time, you know, Rodgers had to go like PSG and stuff like that in Barcelona and get scalped. That was horrible. See, when you're sitting in a bar in a foreign country watching that and you're trying to explain to people, no, we're actually a good side and all that, it's an off night or whatever. It's embarrassing as fuck, you know. But
so on that basis then.
So I think Ange's the diva, and I say Rodgers' team will do better in the Champions League this year, despite what we have, because I really hope and pray that Rodgers is a better manager.
Mark, I see what Liam's saying there. It's very interesting because see, there's one thing having an ego and having a belief and having a philosophy and all that, right? I get that. But we're getting points. And for as much as Brendan almost has it's almost like how would you describe it? Like a parody. ego as well amongst the Celtic fans. I think 4 Tims and the pods are the best at it, where they'll do his wee hand clap thing almost after 5 different like tweets that they see. They've almost turned him at times on Twitter into more of an egomaniac than he is, which is great patter. But I don't think Brendan has that sort of pig-headed way about him where he would go, it's my way or the highway. I think he knows the tools he's got at his disposal and doesn't go with an Australia squad to a World Cup to get cuffed 3 times, but say, but check out the Brendan way, all you managers out there, any PR machine, any agency want to sign me up. Because I think that's what basically happened. Ange's touted himself at a World Cup. He touted himself in the Champions League last year. He's now in the elite managers list, all this stuff. I liked Ange Postecoglou at Celtic. I did not argue with the demeanour of him when he left. I think there was the odd quip, but I think you need to do that to curry favour with the fans. And I think when he left, he did leave with a bit of dignity. I do not think he was trying to upset the apple cart too much, albeit we seen on the pitch that it had upset the rhythm. The players obviously had wind of there was a departure upcoming. In the Champions League, he would have done the same again this year had he remained in situ. He would have done the same even if the exact same transfer window had played out. Brendan will try and adapt depending on the game that he's in. That leads me to think, firstly, Ange's ego is bigger than Rodgers, despite popular belief. And secondly, that Rodgers will get more points than Ange. I agree with Liam on both.
Well, I mean, Rodgers didn't walk out of the fan base and start punching his chest and doing that to the fans and telling the media that they love the fact that he's got a song. Brendan Rodgers never once did that as a Celtic manager, this time or last time.
He did the 10 though, mind. He did do the 10.
Aye, of course, he was
did.
getting it all the time, but he never once soaked up the I never missed a game under that guy. Home and away, I was there, and I did not see the same pish I watched for Ange Postecoglou. You back me on this. I didn't buy any Ange's pish. I said for day one he was a circus act. You know what I mean? All these. I mean, what happened to his cough for a start? The guy's not coughed in 4 months. The guy was fake. He was a bullshitter. You heard that guy Middleton, or the guy that he signed. He said that he was speaking to Ange about 2 months before he fucking signed for Spurs. You know what I mean? So the guy's a liar. Obviously, he knew he was got his Spurs. Anyway, I think Brendan Rodgers has got this character that he has that no matter what he does, he's always got to be seen as an egomaniac, or because he's some no-mark football player. Say they showed him a Gucci belt, and that's what it all came for. All stemmed for that, you know what I mean? Some no-mark, I couldn't tell you the guy's name, probably was in the third string of his squad and didn't like the guy. Ask Suarez and ask players like Scott Brown and Carl McGregor, that man's character, and I think he'll tell you that he's probably quite a humble guy. I like him. Ange Postecoglou saw himself as a maverick that was over for the East to introduce the world of football to the Australian managers and everything. He wanted to showcase Scottish football and showcase what the Japanese players could do. That's an ego part of him as well, you know what I mean? I think I've already stated that I think he'll get I think he'll win a match. So straight away he's better than Ange in Europe, because Ange won 0 in Europe, you know what I mean? And I think it's fairly obvious to any casual observer that Ange is a better man. Brendan Rodgers is a better manager. Right, Pam. I just don't know. I think though you'll get a big section of the fan base that will never ever take to Brendan Rodgers, so that will kind of dictate how he's perceived amongst the fan base. I think the narrative is the narrative. As I said, social proof, and they call it, and you'll never change anybody's mind until you change empty's mind. You know what I mean? And as far as I'm concerned, I think Brendan Rodgers is the kind of guy that would get in his car and go up the road rather than go up the stairs to the players' lounge and have a couple of glasses of wine with the family and take up all the atmosphere with the fans. I think Rodgers would get in his car and go up the road and enjoy his dinner with his family rather than soak up all the adulation. Whereas
not if the Sky presenters and that offer him it now, mate. No, he'll be up there, mate. Not if the Sky presenters and that on Super Sunday offer him it, mate. He'll be up there now. He'll be up there.
I seen a clip of him. He was on
TalkSport the other
day. But he's unlike Ange when Ange was here. he's a big act, you know what I mean? And he's still, because he's been in England and he's won things.
It does work though, doesn't it?
Aye.
To an extent, it does work.
And he doesn't see when I see it in my head and speaking out with the media in Scotland. I thought he was more relaxed. I thought he spoke different. He was a different man. You saw him on open goal, or you saw him speaking to the Australian press. It was totally different. He was more relaxed. Whereas Brendan Rodgers hasn't got three sides to him. He is. You see him in press conferences, and you see him talking to Talk Sport. He'll have a wee giggle with Talk Sport, but he's a very focused man. He doesn't tend to, play to the gallery. Like, I think people say, because you said that story about Danny McGrain. Danny McGrain's about 195. Maybe he did say that to Danny McGrain, and I can't remember. Who knows? Maybe there was some truth to that story. Remember one of the things he was saying? Everybody that I know was saying that Brendan Rodgers made up this super fan. Remember? He's made it up. Then the last he showed up to Lennoxtown and then to Celtic Park when he got unveiled again there. And she's like, oh no, I brought his gift. So that's another big, massive lie that was made up about Brendan Rodgers pretending he's a super fan. And then the last he showed up, that's the guy who's been sending the letters and everything. Take his time.
There's a bit of parody, I think, involved with that. That's what I go to.
He is, he's a huge guy.
But it's not just him. I think the fans are almost exaggerated for shits and giggles a wee bit as well. If that,
it's for the cinema, mate. It's not cinematic. You know what I mean? And I think I don't know. Angie's a bigger ego, and Rodgers will get me points.
And Rodgers, good. Well, all three of us, full house. Let's go to the next one. Right, Liam, you ready for this? This is a good one. Pato comes in. I don't always agree with Pato. Not agree with everything Pato said tonight, but I love this. He thinks Celtic should play three at the back, double pivot, wing backs. Now, let me expand a wee bit on that. I think when you brought in Nat Phillips, it might have been by accident, but maybe you are looking at now. Lagerbielke was a significant investment in comparison with the rest of our transfers in the window. I agree with Mark. His debut at Ibrox is far from convincing. He will get better. I've got no doubts about it. He will get better. What level he gets to, anyone's guess. But he'll definitely do better than he did at Ibrox. Could you go three at the back? Particularly if Rocky had stayed fit. I think really that would have been awesome. Albeit you might not get Nat Phillips then. But if we went three at the back, it removes the left back obstacle that we've got. Right? You could have, I suppose, instead of Lagerbielke, Liam Scales, and potentially his most, I don't know if someone's phone's vibrating left, right, and centre.
It's not mine. I can hear all the time as well, mate. Is
it yours? We've got audio listeners, man. I'll joke. But I think, even Liam Scales is an option as the three of the left side of a back three also kind of works. I like the idea of Maeda at left wing back. I think that would work. I think it would be very much a Didier Gat transformation of position. And Alistair Johnson, I have no doubt, as the engine that plays a wing back. It gives you five at the back when you've not got the ball. It gives you still stability at the back, but a wee bit of extra presence. Liam, you're the most popular man in Europe right now, or in America. But I think the argument for three at the back, double pivot with the protection there, it might sound negative, but once we've got the ball, could transfer pretty quickly into one hell of an attacking side. It would literally be like playing the team split into two halves. It would be. I'd be quite excited to see us try something like that. And whilst I'm advocating Brendan as a more flexible tactically as a manager than Ange, do I see him doing this? Hopefully, in my opinion. I'd love to see it trialled.
Well, it has to be, because everything's pointing towards something. Because the way it's existing with one left back on the team sheet, looks like he might possibly have other ideas. And what a great game to try out then would be Dundee. Dundee would give us a good idea. Maybe we'll line that up and see what that team looks like. Because Alistair Johnson, he plays in a back three for Canada. He plays in a back three for Canada, and he plays well there. That's what they played in the World Cup. And they might be moving to something more like that type of formation. I don't know how well it'll do in Europe, but give me a lot more comfort than seeing Greg Taylor on the pitch. I want to see all our best players on the pitch. I think seeing Hatate that wee bit up.
I get that.
He's another one that can play left back. He came to us and he could play in the left back position as well. We played him at right back, scored 2 goals and got man of the match. And so, there's a player there as well that, could end up, if we play 4 at the back still, or maybe Hatate moves into that position, and that might be in Rodgers' plans. But, yeah. Yeah. That's it, mate. Done. Sorry. I'm getting a million phone calls here. I'm sorry, mate.
You're all right. You're all right. Mark, 3-5-2. What do you think? Or it could be 3-5-1-1, I suppose.
I like 3 at the back, but it's not going to happen because we don't get to October nearly, and just you talk about a team who's not settled into the system yet. Never mind changing it again and starting from scratch. I don't think he would do that, mate. I think for day one, he's come in and he's obviously set up his formation and his in-play changes will happen depending on the score and what happens. So I don't see him coming in and just saying, "Oh, do you know what? See everything I told you in June the 10th, just forget about it. We're going to go 3 at the back." I just don't see it. Although I didn't think he might, I'd be a good option because I think he could be a Didier Gak because he's a workhorse. He's got the pace. He's not got much footballing ability. Let's be quite honest with you. Somebody mentioned Bernabeu. I think that was just to wind me up. I must look very zen tonight, as steal your phrase, boys. He's trying to annoy me. No, I just, when Arthur Johnson, you mentioned, I think Arthur Johnson get named worst right back of the tournament in the World Cup there when he's playing that. So to be fair, I don't want to see him do that for Celtic. To be quite honest with you, see the three centre backs and the wing backs. You say, "Oh, it's 5 at the back," and it sounds like that. No, it doesn't. You're very exposed to a counter attack with a back 3, because what's happening is your wing backs when the ball's played back to you, your 2 defenders are having to go wide, and it leaves so much space. You look at Martin Neal's teams, the amount of goals we lost running through the middle of the park is because of that exact reason. Your midfielders are having to spread out, and your two defenders are having to spread out, and it leaves spaces all in the middle of the park. And I don't think, because a back 5 sounds great, especially in Europe, but there's reasons why.
The double pivot above it, double pivot in front of it, 2 deeper players. It wouldn't just be, it'd be Calmac, 8 and another. Maybe Matt O'Reilly, we've seen stuff like that. It wouldn't be quite the carbon copy of what we've seen under O'Neill. And I do take your point on that. I also wonder, though, if out of ball, when you're not out of possession, winning the ball back now, there's far more impetus in doing it within 5 seconds than there was before. Now, there might be high risk, but apparently high risk football, Mark, is what gets you all the plaudits in the world. I wonder if 3 at the back, actually, the 3-5-2 brings more stability if you commit to, when you lose the ball, the guys that are in the front, the further half of the field, the offensive half of the field, are going to be more committed than what maybe we would have had before, getting that ball back quick. The press has to go straight on and hunt in packs very quickly. The old, what was the tiki-taka rule under Guardiola, the 3-second or 5-second rule or something. I'm not saying Celtic are capable of all this sort of stuff straight away.
When you go, you have to be confident you're going to win that ball because you're coming out of position. Yep. And you're leaving gaps out of place. That's what makes it so hard. That's how even under Ange, we only pressed in certain areas of the park. It's under Ange, we only pressed in certain parts of the pitch because there's certain areas that you allow the teams to have the ball, and there's certain areas that you attack. Because if you step up, that's why I see Brendan Rodgers. His first season was perfect because his game plan was to suck teams in so at least one player would come out of position. And then you just play with about it, and the place just turns into a scramble. We can't afford to do that in Europe, mate. We've got to be, if we step in to win a ball, you've got to win that ball, because how many times have we saw a counter-attack, it's been Cam McGregor jumping in too early, boom, we've lost a goal. You know what I mean? And in the Champions League, the emphasis is on you've got to win your battles, but you've got to be disciplined. And that's the reason why I don't think Bernabeu will ever be a Celtic player, because he's disciplined, but also with that formation, and I like 3-5-2, it's probably my favourite formation. But one thing we all say, that even the Seville season was excellent, but we were very naive in Europe for a lot of games under Martin Neal with that 3-5-2, where we the players good enough to match a lot of teams, but our formation killed us. And I think with a team we've got the new, with a team that's quite short and quite slight. You've not got that long ball, you've not got that out ball to a John Hartson or a Chris Sutton to hold it up to allow your wingers to go beyond and create space and create that kind of leeway for the defence. We've not got that option. We've got Maeda to run down the channels, and maybe we've got Kyogo to maybe catch a man on the spin. But we've not got that type of player, I don't think, to do a 3-5-2. A Jack and Marcus might have fitted into that though.
Yeah, maybe 3-5-2's maybe the two up top though. I think is maybe my bigger problem, Mark, because I think we've highlighted the points about the left back situation. I think we all know Alistair Johnson undeniably has got the injury. He could play the right wing back role. Maeda would be a risk. It would be a risk. Having said that, you watch some of the bigger games he plays, and he's got a real defensive mind as well. Like there's something about him who I think he actually, if you watch, there's a few clips doing the rounds of him with Cantwell recently, and I don't want to be too biased just towards that because it's easy. But there's obviously I think if you actually think about it, he's shown in 18 months that he does kind of like that aspect of the game, the digging back. Do you know what I mean? And with a manager like Brendan, of course, he can adapt him. And you just wonder as well, that we've not seen the best of this Celtic team under Brendan yet. And you've not been overly convinced by Abada, for example. You said in the group chat, I think, you weren't bothered, shall we say, about his injury as strongly as others were. Not because it was great that he exited or anything, but you were more come see come sa than some of the panic that was in the air. Now, we consider that as well. Well, he wouldn't be a part of that equation. And you could maybe look at getting someone to float in that number 10, if that option is a Palma, for example, behind Kyogo, and you've got your three midfield, you've got O'Reilly, Hatate, and McGregor. I'm beginning to think that looks okay. And then is your wing backs. Of course, listen, we're under threat in every game of the Champions League, no matter what it is. And it's how you face up to that and how you obviously execute a game plan by the manager. I probably am in your shoes, though, Matt, where I think, is he really going to do that after whatever it is they've done in the summer, training-wise, then flip the formation? I don't know. It depends, I suppose, if it has been under consideration from day one. But you would like to think, I think Mark's right as well, with the in-game management, Brendan does flex. He's flexible with the team in-game. I would like to see, though, the lineup sometimes not just look as we know exactly what positions we play. We know it'll be 4 at the back. We know there'll be 2 wingers. We know there'll be 1 striker. We know there'll be 3 centre mids. We know there'll be a 4, a 6, and an 8. It's just like we need to liven it up a wee bit. We need to change things as well. We can't even domestically, and that's next on the horizon. We'll come to that now. But that on there, they should be preparing for the unexpected, not the expected with Celtic. Everyone talks about the vast difference in riches. Let's start swaggering that about. Let's start going. It's not just because we've got better players in positions. It's because you don't have a fucking clue what Celtic's coming at you for game to game. I would like to see us a wee bit more experimental. I wonder if it's more of a modern manager thing. I could be wrong. But I remember Martin switched for 3-5-2. I know what you're saying, Matt, to 4-4-2 for his remaining sort of 2 years at the club for the 3-5-2. I just wonder if managers could be a bit more flexible with it. Is everything just got to be like squares and squares and square pegs? Do you know what I mean? Could it not be a wee bit more flexible? That made no sense.
I like you mean, mate.
I think he's got a plan. One of the things that surprises me was including Mikey Johnson on the Euro squad. And when we're talking about strikers, does Brendan see Mikey Johnson as a striker or a number 10? Like, I don't know. I think he's always seemed to rate Johnson. Going back to some, his first time here, Johnson was breaking into the squad, and I don't know. It just seemed an odd inclusion when you're leaving a guy that was fit, that played left back out. And I know he's shite, Mark, but that just seemed an odd inclusion to have in the team. And Brendan must have an awful lot of faith in that boy to put him in his Champions League squad, or is it just because he's Scottish? Because Rocco Vata would have qualified as an academy player.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be available still.
Aye. So I think
Vata will still be. I'm sure Vata can still play.
Right, he might be in that sort of B list that you approve.
I'm sure he's still able to play.
I think Saturday will be a good opportunity just to see what sort of imagination Brendan has, because the last squad that he picked for, or he was forced to pick at Ibrox, they delivered, and they delivered to his strategy and his instructions, and that looked like a very managed performance to me. You know, the game before that, I think we were just all over the place, and that looked like players trying to show what they could do in that. And now it seems like there's a bit of discipline that if you listen to the manager, I can get any team through this. And so tactics maybe are starting to settle. Will we change the squad? I think Dundee would be a great time to try it. Let's see what we can. I'd like to see, like, is Mikey Johnson? I don't even know if he's back from injury yet.
Injured again.
What? Let's throw him on and see what I don't know, what is it you can do. But I've seen enough of Turnbull. I've seen enough of Forrest. There's still other people I want to see, just like, okay, how can you fit them into the team? Because the best manager is the guy that finds a way to play all his best players. I want the best players playing all the time. That's why I got upset with Taylor. I always think he's one of the worst players we have, just at football.
It would not be a T.N.F without that dig. Right, we're going to do one more before we go. AJSC Tech came in earlier and they were saying, question, would fans say that our transfer window would be a success had we signed a £5 million left back and a £5 million striker? AJSC Tech would have said yes. We were just 2 signings short, only 2. I think I would add a goalkeeper to that, if I'm honest. But notwithstanding that, I think you never get everything you want. Had we signed 2 significant players in those 2 positions, Mark, I think the window would be looked a hell of a lot more favourably than it has been for a bit of balance.
Oh, definitely. I think it would have looked like we'd seen the areas we had to improve and we acted on it, rather than us thinking, God, the club have just sat in their hands here. I think a keeper, as you said, would have been perfect as well. But if we bought the money probably doesn't really bother me too much. But see if we bought a left back who was able to nudging Taylor out the way and a striker who's able to deputise Kyogo. Because it's not about the players themselves. We're talking about, we're worried about Taylor's form and worried about Kyogo getting an injury. So if we brought in players who were able to deputise or even take their shots after them, in Taylor's case, then you would see that as a success. But instead we've got 9 players, and apart from Laga Bielka, none of them's featured, really. None of them's made any impact in the team at all. Every one of them's been brought in injured, or they're brought in the last minute, they've been brought in unfit. So we've actually saw the window. We don't know what the window's like. We literally have got no idea what the window's like, and we're nearly in October. We don't know what players we've got. Palma, is he good? Tilio, is he a person? Bernardo, is he a goalie? What is he? We don't know what these players are like, because, let's see them first, you know what I mean? But in the face of it, the fact that we're talking about, let's see what these guys have got in the middle of September, you're going to yourself, that was a very poor window. Even if you bring in a left back and a striker, but see if you put them in, I think you can quickly change the fans' views, like myself, who said they didn't act on key positions. I thought striker, left back, central defence and goalkeeper was a must for Celtic, and they've brought in one position, a player in one position there. And just quickly, just before you get to it, we can't see we cannot rely on O. So see Kyogo, you mentioned Cotton Wool, boys, I'd put him in that bubble wrap. See if Celtic are 2-0 up, I'd take him off every match. Just get him off the park.
What do you say for a bubble wrap or Cotton Wool?
I don't know. Cotton Wool is Cotton Wool is, if you push Cotton Wool, it just goes to the surface. Bubble wrap.
That's a good point.
I mean, Cotton Wool just goes like that.
I never thought of it like that.
Too much rain.
You wouldn't sleep. Like, you wouldn't sleep in bubble wrap, but you'd sleep in cotton wool, like.
No, you would, and you'd probably
like, you could wrap me in cotton wool and I'd like be sheepies, you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, sheepies. But like bubble wrap, I'd be like, this is awkward as fuck.
We're going to get clapped for this, isn't we?
Bubble wrap's for the rain in Scotland. You need bubble wrap for the rain. Cotton wool would be any good. You'd get heavy doing.
Heavy doing, would you?
Let's go with
just curious.
That rubber stuff you put around, like like lampposts so the waves don't run into them at rubber.
I've got them round every single door frame in the house, mate, for when I
I
come
bet,
home.
I bet you have.
Get one of
They got like big black marks of reef palm. Oh, I bet you have it.
Right, that's been an hour. Liam, anything you want to leave us with before we go?
No, there are.
What did you say there?
Oh,
Is it my catchphrase? Use it.
right. Anyway, I'm not fucking saying any of that.
What predictions for Sunday, for Saturday?
I'm zen with all that stuff, man. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, enjoy the rest of your
What is
Thursday
it?
night. It's nearly-
Score predictions. You don't did that yet for Saturday.
I never really. Do you believe in score? Go.
No, but it's a bit of fun. Go for it. You go first.
Right, Dundee at home. 5-0.
Go for it, mate. Leon,
Aye,
what's your
5-0, man. Aye,
That
let's
sounds
just
good,
fuck
mate.
them. Let's have them.
The old boys say, I always go 5-0 at home. Against Munster. That'll be 5-0. He'll go
I'm
with
going to win 4-1, and I think Greg Taylor's going to score. He's going to get a man of the match. He's going to score.
I knew he was teeing up something. I knew he was teeing. From the Greg Taylor CSC, have a great rest of your Thursday.